Right on.
Turn it off, turn it off, turn it off.
Welcome back to the 90% finished project factory. We're getting to the pointy end of the Z32 project, and that means that there's 10 times more work than what we thought to finish it off. So we're busily tightening things up that we forgot, fitting things that we forgot that stopped oil from pouring out of the cylinder head first time you fill it up with oil, making the clutch work, all those things. There's so much stuff going on, and we're just trying to remember everything so something doesn't end in tragedy later when we do forget to tighten up the turbos, which were loose, or the entire turbo housing was loose. So I've been pretty flat out, just finalising a few things. Probably the main things that's been going on is obviously the wiring, which we'll talk about in a bit. That's ready to go back in the car shortly. While I had the inlet manifold off, I've got stuck into fixing the clutch problem that we had. So what I've done there is I've ended up with a Z34 or 370Z clutch master cylinder, which it kind of looks the same as the Z32 as far as the bolt pattern goes, but in true engineering fashion, it is not the same at all. So on the inside of the car, I've ended up using the proper Z32 turbo pedal box, and then made a sort of an adapter that goes in between the pedal box and the firewall to delete the booster. We obviously couldn't use the booster because most of that master cylinder is inside the car now, and it would have gone basically through the middle of where the booster goes. So a few adapters, bit of welding, finalised the clutch with a homemade reservoir. It is a remote reservoir setup. Obviously there's a lot of options for that, but the ones that I've got here are really bulky and we just don't have the space for them, so I ended up just making something out of a Raceworks weld-on cap and a couple of fittings, and that will do the job very nicely. I've plumbed up the power steering, which has kind of been sitting around waiting dormant while everything else gets done, because it was kind of like get everything else in place before we work out where we're going to put those pipes as well. I've got a Raceworks power steering specific reservoir there, so it's got baffling and stuff inside it. It actually fitted up pretty easily, sort of drilled a couple of holes and a couple of spaces here and there, and it's good to go. It's all plumbed up line wise. It is pretty awkward because the pump's on that side and the res and everything's on this side. It's just how they are. It's Skyline's like that as well, so there's not much you can do about it. I customised the outlet of the pump itself to make it so I could get the right angles to avoid things like air conditioning, which doesn't exist yet, but hopefully will in the future. So there's a bit of sort of mess going on there. And as always, the more you fill up the engine bay, the worse it looks basically. Show cars look great because they don't work and don't have any wiring or pipes. So we've also got the Macca spec RB30 oil filter housing. That's sorted, plumbed up the oil cooler. That's all ready to go. I've put oil in it and not much leaked on the ground, except for from the obvious spots. While the manifold was off, we also got the heater hoses sorted. They just fit in there really tight against the back runner, so that's a win. I thought we might have to forego the heater, but we got away with it. The turbos have been plumbed up properly. They were sort of half done. We got oil going into them and coolant running through them now, and back to the header tank as well, so they're good to go. Now we're about ready to bolt the inlet manifold back on for good, and then we will start feeding the new wiring loom into the car under the manifold, plug it all in, etc. we've got the wiring loom in the engine bay and through into the car. It's quite difficult to get into the car, which is just I'm going to call it a 300ZX thing, but it's just where we mounted the computer. It's actually up underneath the dash on the driver's side, mounted off the big crossbar that goes across the underneath and holds everything together. Purely mounted there because the exhaust is over here, and the wiring would have been way too close to the exhaust where it comes through the firewall there, which we've got to block off. We're just running a Nexus R3, which is a pretty good thing for this particular engine combo. I'm not running a PDM or anything like that because this car's got all its wiring that it needs and it all works. It's an old car, but it's not that it doesn't have that many Ks on it or anything like that, and everything seems to be in really good order, so no need for PDMs in this case. So we've just got all the usual sensors needed to run the engine. It's running drive-by-wire, of course, which, as you know, we are a big fan of. So then it's just got your coolant temperature and inlet air temperature, that sort of thing. Crank angle sensors are ROS, so it doesn't run the original crank angle sensor that's like an optical 360-degree thing. If you're running an RB or a VG or a CA or anything like that, it is a good idea to get rid of that stuff because it just does not work very well with both with age and also with high RPM and with like belt frequencies and stuff like that. So this solves all those problems. It's a 36-2 on the crank and just a single tooth on the cam, so that's a pretty ideal sort of combination for this engine and what it's going to be used for. Injectors, Raceworks 1500cc, I think we mentioned that previously, and the coil packs are also Raceworks. That's a whole setup. It's using R35 core packs with the original stalks. The only downside to this, if you would call it that, is that you can't put an original cover on. So in the case of this, where it's obviously got aftermarket covers anyway, you're never going to put that cover over there. And I think the only case where you would worry about that is probably in an RB26, where it's got an actually quite nice sort of stylish looking factory setup on it. But in this case, they're easy to get at. They're right there. It's easy to change the plugs, and they're not getting hot, which is one of the things that was a problem in the first place with RB20 and 25 engines. For engine protection, we've got fuel pressure, oil temperature, coolant pressure as well. Not really engine protection, but a flex fuel sensor. So that's going to give the ECU and Kai, who's going to tune it, all the information that he needs to keep the thing within its sphere of not blowing up. I have got a IC7 Haltech dash and a keypad that I haven't put them in yet. The original dash is still sitting in the car, but I'm going to do that very shortly. I do have to wire in all the indicators and other things into the back of the dash, which I've got a surround that completely replaces the dash. So in that case, if you don't have all those things like fuel gauge and all that stuff and lights for your indicators and high beam and that in the background, you do have to wire all those wires into the back of the dash, and it's all there and capable and set up for it, but it is more work for wiring purposes. In the crown, I've got the same dash, but the ECU itself, the R5, controls everything in the car, so all of those things just come through on a CAN line, and that's it. So there's no wiring involved in that apart from the 4 wires for the CAN and for the dash to operate. So that will be something we've got to get to, but we are just going to try and get the engine started first. Keypad, same thing. It just gets sort of looped in with the CAN line, and then we'll just work out what we want to configure the certain things for. One thing that you will come across very much, particularly if you're changing to an aftermarket dash, is if you've got an older, I say older, but probably say pre-2005 alternator, they mostly rely on the dash light to excite the alternator field. So the alternator won't charge unless it has a dash light, and it's not just there to tell you that something's wrong. It also does that, but it's actually a pretty clever system where it both tells you that the alternator is not charging, but it also basically excites the alternator electronics to work so it does charge. So what we've done here is replaced the light with a resistor that has the same value as the bulb would. So what I use is these are like little LED resistors, so when you put LED lights in the back of your patrol or whatever and the light's blinking too fast, that's because you don't have enough resistance in the bulb, because LEDs don't have any, so that's what they're for. But I use these in this application because they're a bit more robust as far as an automotive application goes. A normal resistor is just like a little electronic part, and they're just not very practical to put in an engine bay, and they're not built for that. They're built to be stuck into a circuit, like a circuit board, so and protected with a case. Whereas these things, you can just sort of stick them down onto the side of the chassis rail in this case, and it's got wires hanging out of it, and you can just wire it into the alternator circuit, and that'll do the job. We use the same thing on Matt's Laurel, and it worked perfectly. So that's a good tip if you want to make your alternator work, because it can be annoying. Is old technology that needs to be replicated when we get rid of all that stuff.
You know what year it is, hey?
What is it?
It's just funny because
Isn't it like 1994?
You're like, it's not that old. You're like, hang on a second. That was 20 years ago, bro.
I'm ready now to start configuring the ECU. So in the case of the R3 and the R5 Nexus, you can do that without powering the system up, which is really good, because they usually come pre-configured and stuff just works, and it may not be the thing that you want to work or the way you want it to work. So I'm just going to leave the system, like the key, turned off, and then connect it to the laptop. The laptop basically says to the ECU, let's work, and then you can just program the whole thing before you even turn the key on, which is a great system. Once we've done that, we'll start priming things up like fuel and that sort of thing, then get the engine cranking, get oil pressure, and then start looking at ignition timing, that sort of thing, and work our way towards getting it to fire up. Just done a configure on the ECU to suit. I actually just got Woody's file off his Barra, because it's the same ECU and same injectors and ignition system, just a place to start. So the file that's on it probably will run the engine okay once you change all the other stuff that needs to be changed, so engine size, that sort of thing. Stuff to look out for is when I've copied Woody's stuff over, his inputs and outputs aren't the same as what this one's been wired to. So you've got to go through and just change everything around so it's got the right voltage input and stuff like that to go with what your sensors are wired to. That's when you refer to this. And just one thing that often catches people out is when you've got a 2-wire temperature sensor, so inlet temperature, coolant temperature, oil temperature, that sort of thing, you got to have a look and make sure that you've got the pull-up enabled, otherwise that sensor will not work. So if you're getting glitches showing maximum temperatures or minimum temperatures or whatever, or it's just not nowhere near accurate, just go into your setup and have a look and check for that. It's a very common fault. Anything that's got a power supply, like a 5-volt ground and input, doesn't need a pull-up because it's got that 5 volts applied at the sensor. We always encourage people to have a go themselves, but if you're in over your head, obviously consult the guy that's going to tune it perhaps, or there's always Haltech help, like support. That's one of the best things about Haltech. Great product, but they also offer like proper support where someone will get onto your computer virtually and help you out. So that's why Haltech is a good thing, apart from the fact that their stuff works really well. So let's give it a go and see if it'll run.
There's a mad V-band leak on that back turbo. You want to fix it before it gets hot?
105 psi oil pressure.
That was just pouring out of there.
Whereabouts?
Is this back turbo?
Maybe that V-band's no good.
Not seated properly.
That clamps. See, that's
Is it? Yeah.
That's what the other one looks like. I don't know why it's different.
Is it seating on the? Is it hitting the
Yeah.
turbo by the looks?
Just tighten up that back V-band, fired it up again. It's running all right, except it's making a bit of a racket in the top end here.
Well, weren't you recording when that happened?
I don't know. It's not my job to record, so.
Is this where we input the title name? It all went bad.
Could do.
You know why it is, Alan?
If you're new to cars, you'll know that it doesn't matter how much money you spend on them or time you spend on them, they can still destroy your life.
Because the oil cooler's upside down.
It could be. I do like to not listen to people that randomly blurt shit out on the internet.
Turn it off, turn it off, turn it off.
I'm gonna say let's pull the cover off, bro.
Should I try pushing the clutch in?
Hey?
Should I try pushing the clutch in?
I don't know. Honestly, that sounds nasty. So the more you're running it in his engine, it's going to be doing some damage. So at least pull the cover off straight up and just check. These covers can come off separately though, eh? We'll just pull that off. I can't see nothing. Not yet.
Pretty horrible sound, so I'm gonna pull the covers off and make sure nothing's grinding itself to bits under here.
Just bringing back memories from being at Dandy Engines.
Why are you bringing up old shit all the time?
Can't see any marks on that side. Is it worth just maybe dropping the belts too? There's no marks on the flywheel or anything. Maybe pull the starter out. Go for it. Oh. That sounds like it's in the cover, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, I'll pull that cover off. Give me a sec.
There? No.
No, I don't think it is. But these... Whoa. Who can see the problem here? I think I can see it. Can you see the problem? Todd Tucker?
Is this what we call a Todd Tucker?
Can you?
Sorry, bro. Had to say it.
Forget it. Now it's called a skid factory.
I'm sure I told you.
I'm sure you told me as well.
Hopefully that's it, bro. That's a good thing if it is.
Here on the Skid Factory, we like to show you what can go wrong. Not just in a static manner either. Yep, she had a little scrape. Was that the... No, there? No, that'd be just with it. No, that'd be it.
Wait, does that mean valves can be touching pistons still, yeah?
Maybe.
Well, go on. Tell the people what's happened, Alan.
These things aren't tight.
What things aren't tight?
These things here. And Woody told me to check them, and I said, no, they should be all right, because I'm an idiot.
It's always nerve-wracking starting your car, and when something like that happens, it's not a good time, but we've got the covers back on. Everything is all good, and now we're about to find out if it's got bent valves.
Check the gearbox out.
Forward.
Just stop.
Yeah. Reverse. Gearbox works.
Done a couple of runs on it and fixed a few things, and now Sebby's fixing the latest oil leak. What's going on down there, bro?
The soft line that comes down and it goes to 180 is leaking there.
Sebby's
Oh, that's an oil feed.
a painter, so you'll have to
Yeah.
excuse his descriptions, but yeah, that's one of the oil feed lines that goes to. It's actually a AN line, not a soft line, but that might need it
Well, it's not
tightening up, but everything's boiling hot now. We're putting the intake tube on now so we can make boosty noises. Oh, the thing's leaking out. Where's that coming from?
That's the water leak.
From where? I know it's a water leak.
From your steam rail, isn't it?
I don't know. Looks like a lot of water leak for the steam rail.
What's that actor's name that works with Adam Sandler in like all those movies? You can do it!
Isn't that the only thing he ever did?
No, he's in heaps of movies. You can do it! Nothing like burning the hairs off the back of your hands.
We keep telling you about aircon.
Hey?
We keep telling you about aircon.
We're just trying to fit up the intercooler. These Plasy camps, as they do have a bit of movement in them, but when you originally weld the pipes up in the car and then you take everything off and out and then bolt it back in again, everything's a pain to line up. So yes, they are great. Yes, they're never going to leak boost, but they are a bit of a pain when it comes to fabricating them. And all those clamshell clamps are exactly the same. So we just tried fitting up this side. the throttle lines up, but this is nowhere near lining up. So put that other one back in, but just cut it back. Here. So doing some modifications. Well, Alan is. I'm just chilling with this bad boy. A lap. After a quick wrestle with the clamps, we've got them on, all good. I'm going to blame that one on heat expansion.
It's the air conditioning condenser.
It's not the aircon. All right, it might be the air conditioning condenser in the way, but that's sorted. So we've just hooked it up. This is a bit of a pain. The SV52 Go Fast Bits blow-off valve doesn't actually fit through the hole, so we've got to bolt it on after. And now it's on. We've been through this before too. There's a bolt in the centre of the blow-off valve, which actually is like the spring tension of the actual valve. But there's actually two springs fitted to the valve, and you can change them depending on how much vacuum the engine produces. So that's something to check on the live data with the map sensor. Check how much vacuum it's actually pulling. With these cams, what size cams are they again? They're relatively mild.
64 or something.
So
you can still run VCT, and you don't have to clearance the head for extra lift, and you don't have to use solid lifters or anything.
you don't.
You just put one more
And your
PSI boost into it.
Your pistons don't hit the valves when you forget to tighten the cam gear up. So that one's, yeah. So the Kelford cams, I think there actually is data on the website in regards to vacuum stuff too, but every engine combination is different. So we'll see what actual vacuum it's reading first, and then we'll play with spring tensions and stuff like that later. But from the get-go, 2 springs may be suitable. So are you good to go again? All right, make some huidushi noises. Oh, now it's getting a bit. Now you need less idle control.
Yeah, true that.
Well, I was at a mad vac leak before, so. That starter motor is nasty. I don't like that. Now it's sounding good. That's sick. It's actually hell quiet, Al. Sounds good back here.
airflow through the core. That's all this ducting's working really well. It's good. Give it a rev. I'm not gonna lie, it is one of the weirdest sounding RBs I think I've heard.
Like it's not loud.
Nah, just like, it's got that V6 tinge to it, the twin 3 cylinders. It does.
GDR, bros.
No, GDRs don't sound like that though.
It's a GDR. What are you talking about?
GDRs go into a
Twin turbo.
single exhaust straight from the turbos though. Pretty well. This is a bit different.
So is this?
This is a bit different to that.
No, it's not.
It's not a GDR.
It's a GDR.
Hitting the key for the first time is always very exciting, but it's not a fun time when something goes wrong. Luckily, as Frank would say, Alan was kissed on the and there was no damage done. Can I say that on YouTube? I'll bleep it anyway, that's fine. There was no damage done, which is good. Everything bolted back on and we got the car running. There is a fault with the throttle, which is Alan's possible wiring. I'm going to blame Alan, he's shaking his head. And there's also a leak from an AN fitting, which I haven't tightened up, but it's in a prick of a spot at the turbo, so we just let it leak. There's also a water leak. We'll get through these things, and that's what happens when you first get your car started. You got to go through these teething problems, and then you get your car on the road and you do 4,000 Ks, and then you realise that the front main leaks and the rear main leaks and the gearbox is leaking and all the rest of it. So these things happen with performance cars, project cars, all the rest of it. But it's a massive milestone for this car. Alan has put in so much work. I haven't really been here. The last few episodes, you'll see Al's been using the GoPro. I've been at my new shed trying to set it up. So the Skid Factory 2.0, the Wood Factory, whatever you want to call it, is happening and everything is going well so far. I haven't been here. Al has put in so many hours in this car, and hats off to him. There's all the plumbing's done, everything's finished off on this car, all the wiring, mounting the ECU, and there's all these little jobs that usually I'm here to help him with to tick off the little jobs on the list, but it's all been Al. So Alan, salute, absolute legend, has put in mad efforts. The next episode for this thing, we're hoping to go and see our mate Kai from Night Family Motorsport to get it tuned, but there still is a whole lot of work to get done before then. So we'll get there in the end. Thanks to Kai for always squeezing us in too. You're an absolute legend if you're watching. And that's going to wrap up today's episode of the Skid Factory. Thank you as always. We have got a bunch of merch. I'm actually wearing a Canefields shirt right now, but we have got a bunch of merch in stock, and moving into the transition, there's some stuff that has to be sold on, and there's going to be a lot of changes. So if you can get some merch, your hand on some merch right now, jump on it while you can, because there might be a bit of a pause and a break selling some merch for a while. So jump on it when you can. And thank you everyone who supports us via buying merch, liking, sharing, Patreon, all the rest of it. We really do appreciate all your support, and especially moving into a new beginning, a fresh start. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next week, or maybe midweek. Maybe I've got a midweek episode coming out. Nah, not this week. Right on. See you dudes. Have a good one. Cheers. Maybe ladies and gentlemen. Dudes. Dudes is a general thing though, isn't it? Dudes? Isn't dude mean like donkey or something? Homies is a good word too though. I always say dudes, but I reckon also crew is a good word to use too. Crew? I've never noticed, but I saw it in the comments section. It looks like you got a face tat here. It's like a teardrop down your eye.
You don't know what I've seen.
Doesn't that mean you've killed someone?
You don't know what I've seen.
Well, use your... Are they... How many of you got those left? Because am I going to sell them or not? Can I sell them as a...
You talk to me like I have any idea about what merch store is.
Neither do I.
Just point to the corner.
Yeah, over here.
That's all you need to know.
Limited edition.
That's all I know.
Never going to be restocked again.
And I
Get
can't
your hands
even
on
pick
one.
the right corner. So.
I really would like to do, and I know Alan said no to this, so it's not going to happen, but I wanted to do a Kramer photo with Al's face on it. As like
a Kramer photo
finale.
with your face on it.
Yeah, but it's you. Like, use your brain. That's like a was going to be like a, you know, celebrate Alan.
Kramer's kind of on the naughty list too, by the way.
Yeah, well, I know we went through that. I don't know. I don't watch the news, so I don't follow that.
You weren't even born when that happened.
Well, still, I don't know. I just know Seinfeld. Hey GoPro, stop recording. Oh, my wrist. Hey GoPro, stop recording. Hey GoPro, I'm gonna throw you in the bin. Just like a show car, Al. It's like throw a mirror under the car.
Nothing reflects like 2 litres of SAE 30
Where's it coming from? Is that where it's coming
from the head drain that I never blocked off. That every single time I looked at it, I thought I better block that off because otherwise it'll leak when I start the car. But I didn't even get to start it. What's SAE mean?
Small Aircraft Engines 30. I should know this, I'm a mechanic. What does it mean?
Society of Automotive Engineers.
Is it?
Yeah. It's a standard.
Huh. I should know that. I did know that. Did you know that? I bet you didn't. But you're going to comment.
I just told you.
No, I'm pointing to the comment section.
Oh, you're pointing to the camera. Yeah. The GoPro stopped showing me things.
Sweet. See you, homie.